She said it so flatly it could have been a grocery list. I don't owe you explanations. That was her answer when I asked where she was last night. Not angry, not defensive, just dismissive. The way you brush off a waiter who brings the wrong drink. And she walked out of the room before I could ask anything else, barefoot on the hardwood, her wine glass half full and swaying in her hand. I sat there in the quiet, staring at the wall behind where she'd been standing. My mouth was dry. I remember that clearly. I wasn't angry, not yet. It was something closer to vertigo. That moment when your body registers that the world has shifted, but your mind hasn't caught up. I stopped asking that night, and she must have thought that meant I'd given up, that I'd accepted it, whatever it was. But I hadn't surrendered, I'd just pivoted. 2 days later, a receipt popped up in our shared credit account. A wine bar downtown. Boutique place. Expensive. She said she was at a book club in a friend's living room on the other side of the city. That was the first real tear in the fabric. I didn't ask her about it. I just logged into the bank portal, pulled the last 2 months of statements, and started reading. Not like a man searching for proof of betrayal, but like an auditor who already knows the numbers are wrong. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I knew I'd recognize it when I saw it. The first thing I found was another charge to the same bar, 2 Thursdays before. That night she'd said she had a work dinner with her team. Don't wait up, she told me with a kiss on the cheek. She'd been wearing a new necklace that evening, one I hadn't seen before. Back then, I noticed things but I filed them under coincidence. People buy jewelry. People lie about traffic. People forget to mention where they've been. It's easy to explain things away when you want the person you love to still be who you think they are. I didn't tell anyone. Not friends. Not family. Not even the mirror. For the next week, I became a ghost inside my own house. I said the right things. I kissed her goodnight. I texted her sweetly when she was out. I kept our shared calendar updated. I smiled when she brought me coffee in the morning. But every quiet moment was spent watching her, replaying little things, like how she didn't flinch when I said, "I love you," or how her eyes didn't crinkle the same when she smiled. On a Tuesday afternoon I left work early. She thought I had a late client call. I didn't. I parked outside the spa listed in one of her more curious receipts. I watched her walk out 40 minutes after her appointment time, alone, wearing jeans and a fitted blazer, not spa clothes. She looked too composed, too made up. I didn't follow her. Not that day. That wasn't the point. I just needed to confirm she was lying. Once you confirm the sky is cracked, you don't need to chase every drop of rain. Back home that night, she curled up beside me on the couch like everything was fine. She reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm. I let her hold it, and I stared at the TV, pretending to care about a show I'd already seen. It was surreal, how easily we pretended. But now I was documenting. I started logging every lie she told, calendar events, receipts, Uber records linked to our joint account. I took photos of jewelry that hadn't come from me. Saved screenshots of texts where she said she was working late, cross-referenced with her phone locations when she forgot to turn off location sharing. I was careful, clinical, detached. She had made one thing very clear when she said she didn't owe me explanations. That was a permission slip. Not for her, for me. She didn't owe me explanations? Fine. But she was going to learn I wasn't stupid. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't walk in screaming. It whispers. It pretends to be something else. And when you finally see it for what it is, you start rewinding everything. Conversations, moments, smiles, asking yourself when the pretending began. But I wasn't there to mourn. I was there to track. And I knew better than to confront too soon. She had more to lose the longer she believed I was blind. So I played dumb. Better yet, I played dependable. Kept our shared calendar clean. Sent her good morning texts. Even left a bottle of her favorite wine on the counter one night with a handwritten note. Thought you could use this after the week you've had. Her reply was a soft kiss and a lingering hug. Too soft, too lingering. Like she was trying to convince herself she could still play the part. She could. But I'd stopped reading the performance. Instead, I dug in. I set up quiet digital alerts on our bank accounts. Nothing invasive, just text pings when new transactions occurred. I got familiar with patterns. A boutique cafe on Wednesdays, the spa twice a month, and that wine bar every second Thursday. She was organized, predictable, which made it easier. One transaction caught my eye. A flower delivery service charged to her personal card, but using our shared billing address, I found the company's site. They didn't sell flowers you sent to others. They specialized in experience deliveries, private gifts sent to yourself at work, or to partners, packaged discreetly. The order was labeled Self-Care Set, Executive. It included high-end cologne, a stainless steel travel decanter, and a note option. The note cost extra, and she'd paid for it. I didn't know what it said, but I didn't need to. That was the first moment I felt something close to rage, not because she had sent a man cologne, but because she had done it from inside our house, with our money, and still had the gall to hold my hand at dinner. I didn't let the rage show. Rage was unproductive. I kept smiling. The next phase was more tactical. I scheduled a lunch with someone I trusted, an old contact who did risk compliance and legal support for corporate M&A. I framed it as needing help vetting a potential vendor. Casual. Plausible. Over drinks, I floated the idea of background checks and business conflicts of interest. He nodded. No judgment. Said he knew someone who was discreet. 3 days later, I met the private investigator. We talked in the back room of a cigar bar either of us smoked in. I told him I wasn't looking for tabloid photos. I wanted confirmation, patterns, and documentation. He listened without interrupting, then asked a simple question. Do you want to catch her cheating, or do you want to understand what she's risking to do it? I answered without thinking. Both. It took him a week to get the first round of photos. Nothing compromising, yet. Just her, sitting at the wine bar with a man I didn't recognize. He wore a navy jacket. Gold watch. They leaned in close. She smiled the way she used to smile when we first started dating. Effortlessly, fully, like her guard didn't exist, like she still believed she was safe. That cut deeper than anything else so far. But still, I didn't confront. I didn't change my tone. I waited. A few nights later, she came home late, smelling of wine and vanilla. She kicked off her heels, leaned against the kitchen counter, and said, Long day. Then she met my eyes, steady, unreadable, and asked, How was yours? I told her it was productive. She poured herself a drink and walked upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen and stared at the place where her glass had rested, still warm, rimmed faintly with lipstick. She thought I was still in the dark, and that meant I still had time to trace the rest of the rot. I started sleeping lighter. Not out of paranoia. Out of necessity. I was cataloging 2 lives, hers and mine, and I couldn't afford to miss anything. By day I worked. By night I documented. And in between, I played husband convincingly enough to win an award. It was easier than I expected. She wasn't watching me closely. She thought I'd accepted the distance between us. That's what made her careless. On Friday evening, we went to a dinner party hosted by our friends, Alan and Sarah. One of those polished affairs with catered appetizers and curated playlists. She wore a black dress I hadn't seen before, and a necklace I remembered. The same one she'd worn the night she claimed to be at that work dinner. I took a mental photo and tucked it away. Alan handed me a drink as soon as I walked in. You look tired, man, he said. Everything good? I smiled. Just work. You know how it is. He nodded, but there was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Something held back. I made a note of that too. She floated through the room like nothing was wrong. Laughed too hard at stories she wasn't listening to. Checked her phone under the table once when she thought no one noticed. But I noticed, and the glance she gave it wasn't casual, it was expectant. After dessert, I excused myself to the bathroom and passed her coat draped over a hallway chair. I checked the pockets. A matchbook from that same wine bar. No lipstick stains, no notes. Just proof she'd stopped by again, despite claiming she was working from home the past 2 evenings. On Monday, the PI sent another report. This time, it came with a name. Gavin Reese. That name hit me like a brick, not because I knew him well, but because I'd met him once, nearly 2 years ago. He'd approached me about a potential business collaboration. His pitch was polished, but off. Too focused on aesthetics. No substance. I declined and didn't think twice about it. Apparently she had. The PI provided a brief dossier. Gavin had launched his own consulting firm. Mid-sized, flashy branding, no real track record. But recently, he'd landed several major clients, 2 of which had been in conversations with my firm months ago and then vanished without explanation. Coincidence? Maybe. But the overlap was too close, and too timely. I called my attorney. Not for the divorce, not yet. I framed it as preparing for an unrelated business contingency. Had him start gathering documentation, NDAs, project timelines, proposal drafts. I wanted a paper trail. If Gavin's firm had poached from mine, I needed proof. That night, we had dinner like any other couple. She talked about her day, asked about mine, even laughed at a joke I told, something about a printer jamming during a pitch meeting. For a moment, I saw the woman I used to love, the one who once stayed up late helping me prep for my first board presentation. Then she said, "I'm proud of you. You've been more focused lately." It almost sounded sincere. Almost. I smiled. "I've had a lot on my mind." Later, she fell asleep before me, her breathing steady, peaceful. I lay beside her staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of someone who thought she was winning. But I'd stopped being confused. This wasn't just about deception. It was about alignment. She hadn't just found someone else. She'd picked someone who wanted what I built. Someone she thought could give her something I no longer could. Not just affection. Influence. Access. Leverage. It was bigger than her lies. Bigger than her affair. And I had the sickening feeling it was about to get worse. The PI's next update landed on a Thursday morning. I opened it alone in my office, door locked, blinds drawn. It wasn't a long report, just 2 photos, both clear, both time-stamped. She and Gavin, stepping out of a hotel downtown. Same one she once called, too pretentious, when we'd walked past it on our anniversary, 3 hours after check-in. Her calendar that day said, "Client call, remote, home." I stared at the images for a long time. Not because I needed more proof, I didn't. But because I wanted to feel it properly. To stop pretending I was shocked. She'd chosen him, and she wasn't being careful anymore. She thought I was out of the game, that I'd gone numb. She was wrong. By noon, I was back in control. I made a list, not of emotions, not of questions. A real list, accounts to freeze, insurance policies to protect, lines of credit to audit. If she wanted out, fine. But she wasn't leaving with half of what she didn't earn. I also called Alan. He'd hesitated at that dinner party. Something had stuck in his throat, and I hadn't pressed. This time I did. "Off the record," I said into the phone. "Do you know anything I should?" There was a pause, then a long, heavy sigh on the other end. "I didn't want to be in the middle of it," Alan admitted, his voice lower than usual. "Alan," I said, firm now. He exhaled again. "She's been seen with him before. Sarah mentioned it months ago. At that networking event, remember? The one you skipped?" I didn't. I'd been buried in a client deal. She told me she was going to support Sarah's presentation. I told her to enjoy it. They left together. Alan went on. "Sarah said it looked like more than just business. But she didn't want to assume." I thanked him. I meant it. It cost him something to admit that. By the end of the day, I had a meeting with my corporate attorney. Under pretext of revising a partnership agreement, I floated questions about information security, IP protections, internal document leaks. We walked through policies and hypotheticals. His answers were sharp. I trusted him. Then I dropped Gavin Reese's name. He frowned. "Why him?" I shrugged. "Just a pattern I noticed." He said nothing for a long moment. Then, "His firm's been getting oddly specific in their proposals lately. Not illegal, just familiar." That was all I needed. I went home with an empty stomach and a clear plan. She was already there, lighting candles in the kitchen. Wine open, 2 glasses. "Thought we could have a real dinner," she said, her voice soft, almost warm. I sat down, watched her pour. She smiled across the table. "You've been distant lately. Everything okay?" For a moment, I almost admired her nerve. She was smooth, controlled. That same tone she used in corporate presentations when pitching people twice her age. "I've just been focused," I said. "Work's picking up." She nodded, sipping her wine. "I've noticed. It suits you." We ate. We talked about nothing. And I let her believe I was crawling back toward normal. But inside, something had snapped into clarity. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was leaking the spine of my business to a man who once called my entire approach outdated. I had laughed him off. She hadn't. She saw in him something new. Or maybe just something less familiar than me. She didn't want more. She wanted different. Even if it cost us everything we built. And now I knew it wasn't just her infidelity I had to address. It was her disloyalty. To me. To the business. To the life we built. The next step wouldn't be emotional. It would be legal. and surgical. I didn't wait. The next morning, I met with my divorce attorney and laid everything out: the PI reports, the financial inconsistencies, the identity of the man she was seeing. I left out the emotion. That wasn't the battlefield now. He nodded as I spoke, tapping a pen against the yellow pad. You'll want to lock the assets down. No, he said. Anything joint, anything fluid, freeze it. Retirement accounts, brokerage access, even shared airline points if they matter. Assume she's preparing for the next phase, even if she doesn't know you are. I took the list and moved fast. The accounts were locked by the next morning. My name removed from anything she had independently. Her name quarantined from everything we'd built together. That afternoon, the twist hit. It started with a flagged financial document. My firm's internal auditor caught a minor anomaly in our vendor payments. A consulting invoice submitted through a shell entity 2 months ago. It looked legitimate, but the contact information was off. Buried in the metadata of the document was something my auditor almost missed. The document had originally been created on a device registered to her name. I had it analyzed twice. There was no doubt. She had authored the invoice, routed it through an LLC she controlled, one I didn't know existed, and funneled the payment directly to Gavin's firm. It wasn't an accident. It was structured, timed, masked. She'd used my company's funds to pay him. Not once, 3 times. All under project codes she had access to, information I'd shared during quarterly reviews, back when I still believed she belonged in my inner circle. That wasn't just betrayal. It was actionable. I compiled everything into a clean, documented file and handed it to my attorney under privilege. He flipped through the pages slowly. Professional, composed, but I didn't miss the way his eyes narrowed as he read. You could pursue civil damages, he said, tapping a finger against the edge of the folder. And if the board gets wind of this, they won't. I cut in before he could finish. My voice was calm, measured. He looked up, one eyebrow raised. I want leverage, I clarified. Not scorched earth. That evening, she came home humming under her breath, like someone who'd already emotionally detached. She pulled leftovers from the fridge, poured herself a glass of red, and didn't ask how my day was. That was the tell. She thought she was ahead. She didn't see the switch I'd just wired to dismantle everything she thought was hers. After she went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, pulled up her LLC's registration form, found the business address. Not ours. Not even Gavin's office. A co-working space downtown. Anonymous. Untraceable, unless you knew exactly what to look for. That was the moment I stopped wondering whether she loved him. She didn't. She just loved what he wasn't, me. And now, she had tied her future to his firm using a paper trail I owned. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with a forensic accountant. I needed the final layer, proof that the payments weren't just unethical, but criminally negligent. And if I could show misappropriation, that wouldn't just end her leverage. It would end her credibility. And when that was done, I'd walk into the confrontation not with fury, but with facts, and the weight of everything she thought I hadn't seen. I waited until everything was airtight, documents aligned, payments traced, legal strategies coordinated. I had no interest in chaos. She deserved a clean ending, the same way a surgeon delivers a cut, precise, irreversible, and quiet. She came home late on a Tuesday. No explanation offered. None requested. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, both pretending to be watching the muted TV, the air between us filled with a silence too even to be real. When she finally said, "I've been thinking about taking a short trip next month, maybe with Sarah." I nodded. It was time. "I need you to sit down with me tomorrow," I said. "There's something we need to go over." She hesitated. "Is this about us?" "Yes." Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Just stood and walked upstairs. The next evening, I laid it all out, methodically. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. No lawyers, no threats. Just the truth, presented like evidence at trial. First, the receipts. Wine bar, spa, hotel. Then the photos. Her and Gavin. Clear. Undeniable. Then the financial records. 3 payments made through an LLC registered to her, funneling company funds to Gavin's firm. Finally, the kicker. The consulting invoices authored on her device, matched to specific internal project codes only she had access to. She didn't speak at first, just stared. Then came the expected response. Denial. "I don't know what this is supposed to prove," I let her twist in the silence for 5 full seconds before replying. It proves you didn't just cheat on me, I said. You used my firm's money to fund your affair. That's not just disloyal. It's criminal. That broke something. Her face flushed, then paled. It wasn't like that. Gavin needed help. His company was failing? I cut in. So you thought gutting mine would even the odds? Her mouth opened, then closed again. The illusion of control evaporated. She looked smaller suddenly. Younger. Like the woman I once met before we had a house, before I trusted her with anything that mattered. I stood and dropped a folder on the table. Divorce papers, asset freezes, and a detailed breakdown of her legal exposure if she contested the filing. You can sign now, or wait and pay for your own defense, I said. But either way, this ends here. Her voice broke on the edges. You didn't even ask me why. No, I said. Because when someone steals from you, you don't ask why. You change the locks. I left her at the table. She didn't call after me. Didn't cry. Just sat there, hands limp in her lap, as the scaffolding of our life collapsed without a sound. The next week moved quickly. She signed everything. Her attorney tried to bluff, but backed off after receiving our documentation. My firm's legal team quietly enforced internal damage controls, while Gavin's company suddenly restructured, citing compliance issues. I heard from a mutual connection that his investor meetings started drying up almost overnight. And the people closest to us? They scattered like leaves in a storm. Some offered pity. A few offered support. Most offered distance. I didn't mind. The truth has a gravity to it. And now it was hers to carry. I thought I'd seen it all. I thought the confrontation was the end. Her collapse at the table, the signature on the dotted line, the quiet withdrawal of her presence from the life we built. But it wasn't the end. The last twist came during a routine conversation with my firm's compliance officer, 2 weeks after she moved out. We finally tracked down where that leak originated, he said casually over coffee. That former junior strategist, Devon. You remember him? Of course I did. Fresh out of grad school. Sharp, enthusiastic, always eager to stay late. I'd mentored him personally, brought him into client meetings early, trusted him with more than I should have. Turns out he signed an NDA, the officer continued. But not with us. With Reese Consulting. 3 months before he quit. I stared at him. Excuse me? He nodded grimly. It looks like your wife drafted it. I didn't respond. I just sat back, the world narrowing again. She'd used me, again, not for love, not for lust, but for leverage. After the affair started, they'd scrambled to gain traction in an industry they didn't understand. And when charm and bluff ran thin, they turned to something simpler. Theft. They hadn't just slipped out of our marriage. They'd tunneled under my business, hollowed out the structure from within, and filled the walls with rot. And the worst part? I hadn't even noticed until I started looking. That NDA meant everything. It proved that even after she was caught, after she'd lied, taken, denied, she hadn't come clean. She hadn't stopped. The betrayal wasn't a singular event. It was a practice. I met with my legal team that night. Quietly, carefully, we initiated proceedings against both Gavin and the junior employee. Nothing explosive. Just the right letters, sent to the right people, at the right time. I didn't need revenge. I needed accountability. The settlement came quickly. Confidential, as expected. Gavin's firm restructured a second time within the month. My company's clients returned, steady and loyal. And Devon? His name now triggers red flags in every internal hiring network we're plugged into. And her? She faded mostly. Moved across the city. No contact, no apologies. Mutual friends stopped mentioning her altogether. One of them, Sarah, sent me a text a few weeks later. You didn't deserve that. We saw it too late. I didn't reply. Some things don't need words. Now the house is quieter. I cook for one. The bed feels larger than I need. I still reach for my phone sometimes, half expecting a message from her, some half excuse, half plea. But there's nothing. And I'm glad. Because the worst betrayal wasn't her affair, or the stolen money, or even the quiet way she dismantled my trust. It was this: she looked at everything we built, and decided it was worth trading for someone else's second-hand ambition. And me? I'm still here. Standing. Smarter. Sharper. More alone, yes, but intact. Every scar in place. I never asked her why again. And she never offered the truth. But I didn't need it. She'd already told me everything I needed to know the night she looked me in the eye and said, "I don't owe you explanations." She was right. And I never forgot it.